Let's make a leather sword or dagger frog, because why not? Alright, so today I'm doing another leather working template tutorial in Fusion 360. And again, you can use a lot of these skills in woodworking or other types of designs that you choose, but it is quite easy to do leather designs on Fusion 360 because the templates that it provides are pretty nice. But the biggest thing to note when using Fusion 360 for templates, again, is to extrude all of your leather pieces that will be templates, because otherwise it will not become a part of your PDF at the end. The templates that Fusion 360 spits out, if you will, are based on the components that you create. So you need to actually extrude this and give it some substance, if you will, in order to go to the design, or leave the design tab at the top left and go into the drawing phase. So anyway, moving on, what we're doing here is creating a what's called a leather frog. I'm not really sure where that name derived from, but it is what holds a sword or a dagger in medieval garb, if you will, or any movie you may have seen where someone has what you may typically call a scabbard. It's called a frog. It's what hangs off of your belt, basically. There's many different types of frogs. There are some for pistols, if you're doing like a cosplay of a pirate or something along those lines, but they are seen quite frequently in people's garb to go to like Renaissance festivals, and people pay a lot of money for these too, so it's pretty simple to make these. I'm not sure why these sell for so much, but what I'm doing here is trying to get some construction lines, and at first I did not like the method that I was using to get this path here. These two paths that I'm trying to create are going to be for the stitch lines to hold the front of the leather wrapping to hold the actual sword. So what you're seeing in the background is a flat piece of leather. Looks almost like the front of a sporran, but this piece of leather will be what's called the base of the frog, and you will stitch in on the front another piece of leather that wraps around and actually holds the sword. I may look for some photos, but if you Google sword or dagger frog, F-R-O-G, that is, and you'll be able to see plenty of these online. So again, this is just how I design these. And what I've done actually here is I went in and started over and did this a different way, because I wanted these two lines to be obviously symmetrical. So I didn't really feel like I was getting the right look doing it by just creating lines. So I went in here and started using the rectangle function, and it's just much easier, because once you add these to your sketch, you can easily right click and move all of these wherever you want them. And obviously, if you have a rectangle to work with, the opposing lines will be exactly where you want them to be. So anyway, that's what I'm trying to do here, which you will see in just a minute. I'm basically creating a path for me to then have holes follow said path, so that I can easily stitch in the front of the leather frog that will hold the sword. It'll all hopefully make sense as this design comes together. So, again, I use pattern on path when I'm doing leatherworking templates in Fusion 360, and I use the spacing as the distance to get it to where I want it to go. And if I want to perfect it, I will switch it over out of spacing to extent to get the holes, like right here as you're seeing, exactly where I want them. So sometimes this takes a little bit of back and forth, and I mean, just getting it perfect is not always a science behind it. So that's what I'm doing here. And the other holes that you saw that I put in are going to be for the rivets that will hold the straps. So basically, again, this is the base of the frog that hangs off of your belt. I will be designing 2 straps that go into those holes right there, those 2 large holes at the top. And those will be like belt loops that go over your belt. And I'll probably not do rivets. I would actually do buttons here so that you could take this off of your belt easier. Or you could do rivets and you could just slide it off your belt. But I've seen it both ways. And then the last piece I'm going to design will be the front piece of the frog that will hold the actual sword in place. Okay, so what I'm doing here, I have to get this part perfect. So there's many ways of doing this. The way I chose to do this, though, was to duplicate the base of the leather frog and then draw another rectangle and then actually cut out the center so that I can work with just that piece, because I need those holes to match up, and I would probably go back, which I know I will, and get these holes closer together because they look pretty far apart. It just really depends on your sword, to be honest, or, well, I guess it wouldn't necessarily matter of the sword size, but you'll see when you're messing around with this pattern that you may want these holes to be in closer. So if you do go to my website and download this PDF for free, which I have started putting on slowly to the website, this is one of them that's available now, you can easily just move these holes where you want them if you want to make this pattern a little bit closer together where the strings will go. And I would probably use leather strings for this particular piece to hold it on to the back of the base. But this needs to be much bigger because as it is now, the sword will slide into this piece I'm making here, but I need to have wings or arms or whatever on this piece as well so that it's big enough to wrap around the sword, which you will then tie in together in order to enclose the sword in the actual, what I call scabbard or frog or whatever you want to call it. Makes a lot more sense if you actually Google what a sword or dagger frog is, so you can clearly see what I'm designing here. And there's many different ways to go about. The base of this design for the frog that I designed first is where you can really get a lot more creative and change that up a little bit. Maybe to hold two swords crossing each other for your back. There's so many different ways to design these, but these things are, like I say, are pretty expensive if you buy these like at a Ren Fair or something, but they're not difficult to make. And a lot of the ones at the Ren Fair also, they don't use a really thick leather. I mean, sometimes it's like a 3 ounce. It's just not what I would probably use for something like this. They get pretty cheap when it comes to those. I mean, God forbid if they use like a suede or something, which would be ridiculous, but you'd be surprised. So you definitely want to get a pretty decent quality leather for this if you're going to be selling this to someone or using this template for yourself. And I will put that link in the description for the direct download to my website to make it a little bit easier to find. Okay, you can kind of see what's going on here now that it's all together. That bottom piece there will be what holds the sword on. Those holes will align together on the base, and the two wings or flaps will fold around the sword. Now, I did forget to put holes in the wings because these will need to be tied together once the sword is enclosed in that piece or dagger. So I will go back and add those, or you can just, as a note to yourself, you're going to obviously want those to have holes, and you could easily just fold the template over or the leather itself and match the holes up on the front and the back to achieve that enclosure for the sword. Now for these straps, these go over your belt. As I stated at the beginning of the video, I started by using just a circle on center to get a little bit more of a design here, but then I went over and used the Spline Tool, which is a lot more creative way of doing it, because you can grab these handlebars, which you eventually get used to using, in order to give you a curve that you want. And then you can simply mirror it like I do here in a minute to the other side, and then cut out the excess lines in order to give you a solid strap here. Okay, so now we're just extruding, and you see the holes. Those will again be what attach to the base of the frog. And there are 2 holes instead of 1. You can choose to use just 1 in the center, or you can do 2 on the base. I'll probably go back and just add 2 to the base, which is simple to do. And those just wrap over your belt and attach directly to the base of the template, and that would be all you need to do. There you have it. Thanks again for watching, and I will be doing another video to show you how I get these into PDF form for printing to hand out or sell to someone if they want to make this leather template design. And I also may do a video to where I go into the sheet metal function on Fusion 360 in order to show you how to bend this around to kind of put this all together so you can get a better idea of what this actually is that way in a rendering. So thanks again.